attacks me on a regular basis. She says stupid shit on a regular basis. They just happen to coincide. But can I just say this?
Have platforms that have stuff on them that not everyone on that platform or who consumes stuff on that platform enjoys. And The View is a particularly weird place to do a cancellation.
It's called The View?
It's called The View. It's not called The Facts.
Yeah, but isn't it interesting that it's called, I mean, I don't think they meant this when Barbara Walters invented it a long time ago, but it's The View.
Well,
that's the problem in America.
But
there is one view,
right, and
one
that's clearly
true opinion, and everybody else can go sit in the corner.
Bill Maher is coming for Whoopi Goldberg again, and this time it's explosive. Whoopi is known for what many critics call out-of-touch takes and off-color comments, but who's better suited to challenge her than Bill Maher? His takedown was sharp, ruthless, and brutally direct. So, hit that subscribe button and let's dive right into it. Now,
what do you think of Whoopi Goldberg saying it's worse to be a black person in America today than a woman in Iran? You know, I see we were talking about the trans issue before, and the New York Times really has come over on that to the sort of the sensible, liberal, not crazy woke position. I think this is a great first step toward getting the Democrats back to sanity, and a second good step would be we got to do something about The View. I really believe that. I mean, could you just
It's huge in Iran, though.
Bill Maher takes aim at Whoopi Goldberg. Discover more. Movies, TV and video equipment, desserts, for making a claim that simply doesn't hold up under scrutiny. MO argues that the comparison between black Americans and women in Iran overlooks major differences in their situations. In Iran, women face systemic legal and social restrictions, ranging from enforced dress codes and surveillance to unequal rights in marriage, travel, and the justice system. Many have even faced arrest, fines, or imprisonment for defying compulsory hijab laws. Meanwhile, black Americans, despite undeniable challenges, participate fully in civic life, voting, owning businesses, holding public office, and influencing national policy. The contrast is stark. Maher's critique cuts through the noise, calling out what he sees as a deeply flawed comparison, one that overlooks the severe state-enforced limitations placed on women in IRA while downplaying the freedoms that exist in the United States.
View in Iran, all with the same head cover. You can't even tell which one is which.
My district in the great state of Texas is actually a white majority district that President Trump would have won by 25 points. As I said, I'm a direct descendant of a slave. My great-great-grandfather was born on a Rosedale plantation. I am literally being judged not by the color of my skin, but by the content of my character. That's the progress because, like, a lot of white people had to vote for me. A lot.
So wait,
I don't even ever want to hear Whoopi Goldberg's conversation about how it's worse to be black in America right now. That's a bit far. And my father, who's 75 years old, he was a man that was in the French quarters that had to go get a sandwich to the back door of the building. And his son is now a United States congressman in a white majority district in Texas as a Republican. That is America. That's America.
Wesley Hunt couldn't have picked a more powerful example than the story of his great-grandfather, someone who lived through an era of real, undeniable oppression over a century ago. That comparison alone highlights just how far the black community has come since those dark chapters of American history. From legalized segregation and systemic exclusion to now having representation at the highest levels of government, business, and culture, the progress is not just visible, it's historic. That's why critics say Whoopi Goldberg's statement feels out of touch, arguing it overlooks that progress and presents a more one-sided narrative. Criticism is fair and challenges still exist, but exaggerating them to the point of distortion helps no one. To critics like Hunt, this isn't just a bad take. It's part of a broader trend where complex social realities are reduced into dramatic sound bites designed more for reaction than for truth.
Juneteenth. That's a Texas holiday. It began in Texas in Galveston. General Granger came and read the Order Number 3 that finally abolished slavery months after the war because the war took a time to get to Galveston. We celebrated that when I was a kid in Texas, but it becomes national a year or two ago, and Donald Trump doesn't want to celebrate that. To me, it's exactly what you're talking about. So, is it 600,000 people died so that we wouldn't enslave people anymore, and the fact that freedom won is a good thing, and we should honor that. That's what Juneteenth's about. And I don't know why President Trump doesn't want to honor that.
So I don't want it. I don't want Black History Month. I don't want all these days for it to make everybody feel special. I'm an 80s baby. Everybody's too sensitive anyway. We're all Americans anyway. This holiday
That's what Morgan Freeman said.
Morgan Freeman, said, I can't agree more with him.
Yeah, he said that to Mike Wallace. He said, I'm an American. Do you want to be called a Jew American, Mike?
No. Bill Maher finds himself aligning with Donald Trump on this issue. And honestly, it's not all that surprising. Maher has long criticized what he sees as excessive identity politics, and this is right in that lane. His argument is simple but provocative. Dedicating an entire month to a specific race, such as Black History Month, may have started with good intentions, but it risks reinforcing division rather than unity. From Maher's perspective, constantly emphasizing differences, whether racial, cultural, or political, can unintentionally deepen the very divide society claims it wants to heal. Instead of bringing people together under a shared national identity, it may encourage people to see themselves primarily through the lens of race. Critics of this view argue that such observances are about recognition, not separation. But for Maher, the concern remains. Unity, in his view, shouldn't come with qualifiers. It should be universal, not segmented.
Celebrate Juneteenth too, and non-Italians celebrate Columbus Day. And
I'm all for any holiday.
I'm half Irish. Do I get half the day off on St. Patrick's Day?
But a lot of
I get half drunk.
Everybody gets drunk on St. Patrick's Day. That's a good point.
Did you have a question for the congressman there?
No, are you telling me you're black?
Yes.
You don't see color, right?
We don't see color.
Maher's guest makes a point that resonates with many. Perhaps it's time to move beyond constantly defining ourselves by race and start embracing a shared identity as one people in one country. The idea isn't about ignoring history or pretending differences don't exist. Those differences are real and, in many ways, valuable. Culture, heritage, and personal background all shape who we are. But the argument here is about balance. When race becomes the primary lens through which everything is viewed, it can overshadow what unites people in the first place. Overemphasizing divisions, even with good intentions, can slowly erode social cohesion. The goal, as Maher's guest suggests, should be unity without erasure, recognizing.
Okay, and finally, new rule. Someone must tell the usual suspects on the far left that the saying is, when you're in a hole, stop digging, not keep digging. Talk about doubling down on what got you fucked in the first place. Even the one concession I've heard a few people on the losing side offer, that liberals should stop saying the Trump voters are stupid, comes with a kind of unspoken parentheses. We know they are stupid, just don't say it. Yeah.
Bill Maher then turns his attention to The View, arguing that the show often does more harm than good for liberalism. In his view, the panel's tendency toward exaggerated takes and out-of-touch commentary ends up making the broader left look disconnected from everyday Americans. Instead of strengthening the appeal of liberal ideas, Maher suggests it can have the opposite effect, pushing potential supporters away. He points out that when viewers tune in and hear these kinds of arguments, they are not necessarily persuaded. If anything, they become skeptical. Even some on the left, he argues, feel frustrated, believing the show does a poor job of representing nuanced or practical liberal viewpoints. Figures like Whoopi Goldberg often become the face of these moments, amplifying the criticism. For Maher, it's not just about disagreement, it's about messaging. And in his eyes, the messaging isn't helping the cause.
Yeah, I got bad news for you. They don't have a monopoly on stupid. You wear Queers for Palestine t-shirts and masks 2 years after the pandemic ended. And you can't define woman, I mean person who menstruates. You're the teachers' union education party, and you've turned schools and colleges into a joke. You just lost a crazy contest to an actual crazy person.
Bill Maher doesn't hold back as he takes aim at Whoopi Goldberg and the hosts of The View, accusing them of pushing what he sees as woke narratives over fact-based discussion. In typical Maher fashion, the critique is blunt and unapologetic. He argues that too often the conversations on the show drift away from evidence and grounded reasoning, leaning instead on emotionally charged takes that don't always stand up to scrutiny. According to Maher, tuning in on any given day can feel less like a balanced debate and more like an echo chamber where opinions go largely unchallenged. He suggests that some of the statements made on the panel clash with basic logic or widely accepted facts, which only fuels criticism from viewers across the political spectrum. For Maher, it's not about silencing perspectives. It's about raising the standard of the conversation and bringing it back to reality.
You love to speak truth to power, and we always should, but you have completely lost the ability to speak truth to bullshit. The Democratic polling firm Blueprint told Democrats months ago that black voters, aka their supposedly liberal base, were more likely to find the president too liberal than too conservative. They also found that voters didn't just want Harris to distance herself from Biden, they wanted her to distance herself from what they believe the entire Democratic Party has become, a Portlandia sketch.
Yep. A growing number of critics argue that the Democratic National Committee has lost credibility, with some describing it as increasingly out of touch with voters. That perception is exactly why voices within and outside the party have suggested that Kamala Harris may need to distance herself from what they see as damaging rhetoric and internal dysfunction. The concern is that certain messaging strategies are turning off moderate voters and weakening the party's broader appeal. However, critics also point out a difficult reality. Distancing herself may not be so simple. Many of the figures considered likely contenders for leadership heading into the 2028 election cycle are closely aligned with the same ideological direction, which makes any major pivot complicated, if not unlikely. To them, it creates a kind of political loop where the same ideas, strategies, and messaging continue to dominate, leaving little room for a reset that could reshape public perception.
I want to talk about Whoopi Goldberg because I got so many texts this week because she attacked me the week before. Sure. So everybody was like, oh, Bill, I get you're enjoying the karma. First of all, I'm going to talk about this at the end of my show next week, teaser. But there is no fucking thing as karma, okay? Get over that. Whoopi attacks me on a regular basis. She says stupid shit on a regular basis. They just happen to coincide. But can I just say this? I had on last week Ira Glasser, former longtime head of the ACLU, talking about free speech. Whoopi Goldberg, who, by the way, I hope is still a friend, we can disagree with each other, should not be canceled or put off her show, as much as I totally disagree with her crazy statement. Free speech.
Bill Maher has had his share of back-and-forth moments with Whoopi Goldberg, often clashing over some of the more controversial statements she's made on The View. Despite those disagreements, Maher has remained consistent on one principle he rarely compromises on: free speech. Even when he strongly disagrees with Goldberg's takes, he doesn't support calls to have her removed from the show. Tomorrow, the idea of silencing someone for expressing an opinion, no matter how flawed or provocative, sets a dangerous precedent. Debate, in his view, should be met with more debate, not cancellation. That's where he draws a clear line. At the same time, he's hinted at what he sees as a double standard. Maher believes that if the roles were reversed, voices on the show, including Goldberg, might be quicker to call for consequences against him. That contrast, he argues, reveals a deeper inconsistency in how free speech is defended.
Isn't it interesting that it's called, I don't think they meant this when Barbara Walters invented it a long time ago, but it's The View.
Well,
that's the problem in America.
But
there is one view,
right, and
one
that's clearly
true opinion, and everybody else can go sit in the corner.
That's correct. I think that's not actually, you're right, the name raises questions, and certainly there's been some much covered internal politics on that show, but I do think that, there is space. Even that show does have space. When Whoopi said what she said, there was quick pushback from other panelists. They were like, oh, I don't know. Actually, I think that might not be right.
And that's the core issue critics have with The View. The hosts often take a firm position on a topic and stick to it. But when a dissenting opinion emerges, whether from a guest or even a fellow co-host, it can quickly turn confrontational. Instead of fostering open dialogue, the atmosphere can feel more like a battleground where disagreement is met with pushback rather than curiosity. To critics, this creates the impression that there's little room for nuance or honest debate. When conversations become one-sided, it not only limits the exchange of ideas, but also risks alienating viewers who might see things differently. Healthy discourse, after all, thrives on contrasting perspectives, not uniformity. The concern isn't about having strong opinions, that's expected on a talk show, but about how those opinions are handled when challenged. Without space for respectful disagreement, the conversation can feel less like a discussion and more like a closed loop. In short, Maher's critiques highlight what he sees as a recurring problem. Shows like The View often prioritize ideology over facts, suppress dissenting voices, and promote division. While free speech and debate remain essential, the lack of balanced discussion undermines credibility, alienates viewers, and ultimately weakens both the message and the broader appeal of liberalism. And on this note, we draw the curtains on today's video. If you enjoyed it, then hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next.